Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be going over some tips and advice for people who want to get better at Arsenal. So whether you are brand new to the game or you just want to improve, this video should help you. So I'm going to start first off in the movement category. Now movement is incredibly important in any FPS game. It's the thing that is going to... It's the thing that defines a good player from a bad player. A good player uses lots of movement. Now you can have awful aim and you can still be a good player because your movement is good. And the same goes for shooting. You can have awful movement, but because you're so good at shooting, you're still a good player. Now an amazing player or a great player can do both of those. I'm going to be going over them both, but we're going to start with movement. Now obviously, probably the most simple form of movement is the actual moving, you know, what direction you move in. Now, I'm going to assume you're playing on mouse and keyboard for this, but you can kind of convert any advice I give onto your, you know, whether you're an Xbox player, a PlayStation player, or even a mobile player. I'm sure you can sort of see between the lines there and get your own view on this. But starting off with movement, that would be WASD. Space and crouch control. So for your movement, normally you're going to be holding W, or if you're moving diagonally, you're going to be holding W and A or W and D. When you are jumping around corners, now this is something that's pretty important. When you're jumping around corners, most of the time you're going to want to just do a normal W jump and then use your mouse to turn in the air, called air strafing. If you want to get round quite a sharp turn, you can actually hold one of the directional keys and you have to sort of move sideways. You have to turn your mouse to imagine that you are moving in that direction. But you should be able to do it like with just W anyway, but I practiced that for a little bit. The next thing is using Q and 3 to switch to your melee weapon. Now when you're holding your melee, you are usually faster. I say usually because some weapons do actually have the same run speed as the melee. Keep that in mind. You should be switching to your melee pretty much all the time anyway. You can use a lot of momentum as well. Momentum is really useful. That's why melee is important, because if you can switch to your melee weapon and run faster, it means you can also jump further, which means, well, with momentum in Arsenal, you actually keep all the speed you had. So if you are running around with your melee weapon and you jump, you can then switch back to your normal weapon, no matter how slow that weapon is to run with. It could be like a minigun, and you'll keep the same speed while you're in the air. So it's really helpful for chasing people or jumping around corners and surprising people with a heavy weapon. Air strafing as well is quite important. I've already gone over it briefly, but you can also use like explosive weapons. This is a good place to practice, actually, is like with the concussion launcher thing, whatever it's called. If you shoot that at your feet when jumping, that shoots you in the air, and that's where you're going to be able to practice lots of air strafing. So turning your mouse slowly in one direction while holding W or holding forward, and you'll be able to turn in the air without actually pressing one of the directional buttons. Most of the time you don't want to use the directional buttons unless you're on the ground. Something that might be confusing to people is the bigger melee weapons. Like you've got stuff like sledgehammers and paddles. They don't actually matter. Like every melee weapon is the same fundamentally. It just looks different. A knife has the same range as a sledgehammer, and a sledgehammer weighs the same as a knife, so it's not going to make you run any slower, and it's not going to make you reach any further. Crouching as well is something... It's something that I normally don't do. Crouching, I feel like, is only useful when you're taking cover. Any other time, you usually won't want to use it. I would recommend just playing the game a lot, practicing a lot, just without crouching, and then eventually you're gonna realize, like, when is the right times. And most of the time, like 90% of every game, probably more, you're not gonna need to crouch. Some weapons give you double jump, so the little, I don't even know what it's called. I think it's called like I'm not even gonna try and guess because I don't know. It lets you double jump. There is also the golden gun, I believe. It's either the golden gun or the golden knife lets you double jump. I'm pretty sure it's the golden knife. And if you start with your melee out and then you switch to the double jump weapon, when you are jumping, obviously you've kept the momentum. Even through the double jump, you'll also keep the momentum. So that's another good way of air strafing, jumping around corners, keeping your momentum. Basically, it essentially lets you float on the air for a while, which is really helpful actually, because people don't normally see it coming. Now on to the next category, being shooting. Now shooting is obviously the most important part of the game. It is what the game is made on. You know, it is a shooting game. Now, I'd say the most important thing, the single most important thing, is getting the right sensitivity. This took me a long time to do, but if you go in the settings, like the normal Roblox settings, there is actually there's your normal little like sensitivity thing where you can make it bigger or smaller by little jumps, but you can actually change that number to whatever you want. But yeah, get the right sensitivity, play around with it, find what's best for you. And yeah, there's not like a sensitivity I can recommend because everyone's setup is going to be different. You could have like a massive mouse mat like me, where you've got plenty of space, you can use your entire arm. Some people are just going to have like a little one and a little space where you just go use your wrist. In that case, you'd want a higher sensitivity, obviously. But yeah, just find the right sensitivity for you. Next, we're going to talk about aiming and scoping. Scoping gives you sort of, like, you only really want to use it if they're super far away, right? You don't want to scope in on someone who you could shoot hip fire, and you can usually shoot anyone hip fire, but like the only time I would normally scope is if they're a little like speck on my screen and I can barely see them. Like if it's hard to hip fire them. I guess it doesn't really matter. If you're trying to hit headshots, scope. If you're not trying to hit headshots, just find someone who's close to you. Otherwise, yeah, you can scope in on them. Bullet spread. This is something that is very irritating in this game, but is easy to manage. The longer you shoot a weapon for, and this normally you'll notice it more in automatic weapons, bullet spread will only really affect you or feel like it's affecting you on those automatic weapons that you're holding down for a long time, because you'll see your little crosshair grow in size, and that's how you know that your bullet spread is more. So the wider your crosshair is, the more your bullets are inaccurate, basically. Just get an idea for that. Get an idea for what weapons have bigger spread, which ones you need to sort of not be holding down your weapon for, which ones you need to just click with rather than holding. And that can help you a lot of the time. If you feel confident in your aim, if you feel confident in your accuracy, try and get headshots. Whenever you're using snipers, pistols, or any weapon that is like bad, particularly the Hush Puppy, the Webley, I think it's called, just aim for the head with those weapons. Yeah, just get comfortable with headshots is all I can recommend. Those like one-shot weapons are easy to do it with because, again, there's no spread, so you're not going to be screwing up. But if you have a stinky weapon, just try and get headshots. Taking cover is another part I've added in the shooting category because I feel like it's more of a shooting thing than a movement thing. Taking cover is really important. If you have somewhere you can take cover, a lot of the time it won't matter anyway because someone's like, sometimes the servers are weird and you get shot from behind a wall, but a lot of the time it can help you because you can jump around a corner, you can, crouch behind a box, you can run behind something. It's useful because you'll be able to stay alive for longer if you get in those sticky situations. And you will get into those situations quite a lot, but making it part of, getting practice in for you to be able to stay alive is important, and taking cover is the easiest way to do that. And into the third and final category of things, we have sort of pro tips or little bonus things that you should know. Now, the first and foremost thing, if you have a monitor that is 144 Hz or 240 Hz, 360, whatever it is, anything above 60 Hz, you want to download something called FPS Unlocker. I'll have a link in the description. It's a little... in fact, I'll show you it. It's literally just a program you can run called literally FPS Unlocker. You just run it. It'll do its updates and it'll also create a little settings thing. Then what you can actually do if you open this, you can choose what you want. So you can change the FPS. Whenever you play Roblox, your FPS is capped at 60 FPS. I have a 240 Hz monitor, and when I play Roblox, I'm only getting 60 FPS because it's capped, which means I'm only getting 60 Hz being used. Most of, you know, that nice smoothing that you get from a high refresh rate monitor isn't being used. With FPS Unlocker, it unlocks your FPS and it instead changes the cap to a higher one, which means that you are actually getting use out of the high refresh rate. It means that it'll be nice and smooth and you won't have to worry about anything else. Trust me, once you go from using it and then you change back, and then you once you start a new game and you automatically assume it's already running, which it won't be if you've restarted your computer, it feels like a PowerPoint presentation. So yeah, that's a handy thing to know. Another tip that I found the other day, actually, I didn't actually know, is if you're playing hard mode, which is one of the modes, as competitive, monkey business, all that stuff. There's a mode called hard mode. If you're playing hard mode and you melee someone, they get sent all the way back to the first weapon. I didn't know this until people were complaining about it in the chat, because I was running around meleeing people because the weapons are horrible in hard mode. Straight on top of that, the next tip I have is in hard mode, or not even in hard mode, in any mode, melee, instead of using the bad weapons. If you get a weapon you think is complete trash, just run around with your melee out, because you'll be running faster anyway. Run around, have a look, try and get some high ground or somewhere where you're not going to be shot too easily, and just have a look for someone that you can drop onto or sneak behind, and then just get the melee kill, and it'll send you forward and you won't have to use that horrible weapon. Another thing is confusing skins. Now, what I mean by confusing skins is there are white and black and textured skins in the game, which can make it hard to tell what team someone is actually on. There's one astronaut skin which is pretty much solely white, only with a little strip of color on. And I was playing against one the other day and it was so confusing to know if they were friendly or not, until I eventually obviously had to put it in my mind, hey, this guy's an enemy, whenever you see him, shoot him. But it can make you less likely to get shot by someone because they can't tell that you're actually an enemy. The final tip is the settings page. Now I'm talking about the Arsenal settings page, not the Roblox settings page. The Arsenal settings page has gone through many updates and there's a lot of things you can change. I highly suggest just flicking through it and seeing what you like, what you don't like. The things I would most recommend changing is in the audio, you can turn off all the annoying sounds. What I mean by annoying sounds is announcers. Once you've played the game for more than 2 hours, probably, the announcers get incredibly frustrating. And all you're going to hear is, nice headshot, good one, nice, headshot, nice, nice. And it's annoying. You don't want to hear that. So I turn them off personally. Maybe you like it, but I don't. Another thing you can change is your FOV, your field of view. That is important because if you are not playing on a TV, you don't want to feel like you're completely zoomed in. Now, obviously that's just how FOV works. The closer you are, the higher you want your FOV. Obviously, this is going to change for everyone. People are going to want it on stuff like 120. People are going to want it on 90 if you're a freak. But yeah. That is all of my tips. Go listen to them all. I'll have them linked in the description. FPS Unlocker will be down there. Trust me, give it a try if you have a high refresh rate monitor. Anything above 60. And have a great day and peace.